What's going on, you bunch of heathens? We're back with another video today. This one is from the Intel report, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the, like, what would you call it? Brother or sister channel to the operations room. That where I think I actually don't really know much about it. I think they go more in depth on certain things, I think. Maybe, I'm not positive. We'll see. But this one caught my eye, and it seemed interesting. It's Operation Iraqi Freedom, but from the Iraqi military perspective. And honestly, that really interested me, so I was like, fuck it, let's check it out. Make sure you guys check out the original. It's linked down below. And without further ado, let's jump in.
A quick word on this week's sponsor, Aura. Aura are dedicated to protecting you and your family from online threats. I received an email a few months ago from a company that I trusted, announcing that they had been involved in a data breach, and my personal information was at risk. This was alarming.
Yeah, that's the fucking worst.
The vulnerability of my data. Unfortunately, this is becoming more and more common. The National Public Data Breach in 2024 exposed the personal information of millions of people. If cybercriminals get hold of your personal data, they could target you through identity theft, fraud, and they could even open new credit accounts in your name. Aura will monitor your personal data across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records to alert you about potential identity theft. Every adult on the account, up to 5, gets $1 million in identity theft insurance to cover eligible losses and fees.
Honestly, this is probably something that I should look into.
You with all-in-one protection across multiple devices. They also help remove your personal information from data brokers and people search sites that can sell your information to identity thieves and scammers, and you'll get a VPN service, password manager, and antivirus for your devices. Aura will never sell your data to third parties. I get this all-in-one app at an affordable price. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/intel to try 2 weeks for free. That will be more than enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. By the 1st of April 2003, Saddam Hussein's regime was on its last legs. Coalition forces were just 60 miles from downtown Baghdad, and Saddam's iron grip on his nation was collapsing in the face of the invasion.
Damn! I've seen references to this, them pulling down the statue, but I never actually seen the actual video of it.
Was collapsing in the face of the invasion.
It's crazy. I've never actually seen the video.
The military had been shattered in the first days of the campaign, and largely existed only on paper, as most of the resistance against the coalition came from paramilitary groups and local militias. After the war, American interrogators posing as military historians conducted extensive interviews with Saddam Hussein's inner circle and high command, which gives us a unique perspective on the war from the Iraqi point of view.
Oh, that sounds
In this video,
dope.
We will examine the war from the perspective of Saddam Hussein and his high command, exploring in detail their military strategy, assumptions, and the reason for Iraq's military collapse in 2003.
It's cool. That's really cool that it's like, yeah, we're going to interrogate them under the guise of being military historians, which also works out because we also still get that military history background for it.
The military had been badly damaged after its humiliating defeat in Operation Desert Storm in 1991. They had suffered appalling losses, while most of the army's modern equipment was destroyed by superior coalition technology.
Yeah, they got
All
fucked.
8 of the elite Republican Guard divisions involved in the war were so badly mauled that they needed to be temporarily disbanded. However, there was little time
and I know the Iraqi Guard was like the best that they had.
Multiple uprisings against Saddam's regime took place after the end of Desert Storm, and what remained of the regular army were called upon to suppress the revolts. By the end of the war, the uprisings in southern Iraq were defeated, while the Kurdish Peshmerga had been contained to the mountains in the northwest corner of the country. Saddam Hussein held on to power, but recognized that he had barely survived the war and the subsequent revolts. He was keenly aware that internal unrest was the biggest threat to his regime in the immediate aftermath of Desert Storm, and decided to reorient his military to deal with this reality. He dramatically reduced the decision-making ability of his military commanders, and gave more power to his family members and fanatically loyal army officers.
Less smart. I mean, kind of less smart, but at the same time also kind of smart, all things considered. But I mean, it seems more like he's going down the what's his face? I'm blanking here. Fuck. What's his name? Stalin. Thank you. I couldn't fucking remember. Like the Stalin path of getting rid of his top guys.
His youngest son, Kusai, as commander of the Republican Guard, while Brigadier General L.T. Critty was appointed to command the Special Republican Guard forces responsible for the defense of Baghdad. It cannot be emphasized enough that these promotions were made on the basis of loyalty and not competency.
Sounds about right.
Was a particularly egregious choice. He was a known drunk and had failed staff college. After the war, when interrogators asked Defense Minister General Al-Tai about Al-T Critty's ability, the Defense Minister laughed out loud. He told them that Al-T Critty had been appointed because he was a close cousin of Saddam, and he was not clever enough to put a coup together on his own. The rampant nepotism and cronyism severely hampered the
trying to remember, there was who was the Donut Media podcast, the guys who do cars. I remember I used to listen to them all the time when I was at work, and they did a video on Saddam's, was it his families or something like that, the cars that they owned, the supercars and shit. That was a super interesting, because they had millions upon millions of dollars worth of cars just stashed away in random fucking houses, mansions and shit like that, just going to waste and getting fucking ruined by the desert. Another interesting podcast that I absolutely love is the Dictators podcast, I think. Because they did, they break down like the life of dictators and whatnot. There's like an over 7-part series of Hitler, which was super interesting. Like his rise, his fall, all of it. Super interesting. And then there's also Gaddafi, had like a 4 or 5-part series that they did. Gaddafi was another interesting one. Like there's some really interesting things that I kind of want to get back into listening to this podcast.
Iraqi military's ability to recover from the humiliation of 1990.
I don't remember why I went on. Oh, that's why. I was about to say, I don't remember why I went on this tangent. It's because of the nepotism. He talked about his kid. Because I think in the Donut podcast, they were talked about the interrogation of his kid. By
While Saddam Hussein
coalition forces. I want to say Marines, but I'm not positive.
The regime's cronies, his generals were struggling to develop a strategy that would prevent another defeat on the scale of Desert Storm. Prior to the First Gulf War, the Iraqi military had been one of the largest and best equipped in the world, but relied upon outdated doctrine that was formulated during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s.
To be fair, they used to also have one of the biggest navies until the Operation Praying Mantis. God, that's such a good video. That video would have fucking killed on my channel. The problem is, I watched it, because that's usually like that's like the number 1 Fat Electrician video. That's where most everyone starts with. And I'm just sitting here like, God damn it. That's, like, that really sucks, because like, damn. I already watched that before I started my channel. Well, not before I started my channel, necessarily. Before I started uploading on my channel. But yeah, that kind of sucks.
The 8-year conflict was defined by static warfare, as both sides failed to break through each other's lines. The Iraqi military prepared for Desert Storm using the same defensive tactics they had employed against the Iranians. Poorly trained and equipped border guards held the first line of defense, followed by the regular army. Finally, the Republican Guard acted as the rear echelon, tasked with containing enemy breakthroughs. This strategy had worked during the war with Iran, but led to disaster against the modern militaries of the coalition.
Yeah. Is that
Having already
Marpat?
achieved
Was there Marpat in 2003? If so, I didn't know that. I gotta look this up. 2002, so that was probably Marpat helmet covers. Just not widely introduced yet. It's interesting.
Air superiority, allowing for a 5-week bombing campaign. The coalition ground forces easily smashed through the Iraqi defences in only 5 days. In 1995, Saddam's generals conducted a military review and recommended that Iraq adopt a different strategy to defend against an American invasion. Borrowing from history, they urged the Iraqi dictator to employ a similar strategy to how the Russians defended Moscow against Napoleon and Nazi Germany. The Iraqi army would be arrayed in a defence in depth, with multiple lines of defence emanating from Baghdad. They would trade space for time and attempt to bleed the Americans as they advanced north. There would be no large mechanised divisions held in reserve, as the Iraqi High Command recognised they would be mauled by American and British aircraft the second they started to move south. Instead, the large armoured formations would be broken up and distributed evenly to harden the rest of the army. Much like the Russian winter hampered the French in 1812 and the Germans in 1941, the harsh Arab desert with its sandstorms would ground coalition air power. Critically, the regime was to distribute arms and supplies to local tribes and militias to encourage partisan activities behind the lines. With the relatively recent Vietnam War in mind, they could make the campaign so painful for the United States that the Iraqi government could negotiate a satisfactory end to the war. Although this strategy was militarily sound, the Iraqi president rejected it outright.
Sounds about right.
War with the United States was a distant third on the list of threats to his regime.
Really?
First
You're
was a coup
actively...
attempt. Second was the potential for another conflict with neighbouring Iran. To him, arming the tribes and militias would only result in them turning their weapons on his regime.
Well, maybe don't be such...
for their insistence on breaking...
Well, maybe don't be such a dickwad. You know? In the coup, yes, maybe, but that's don't be a dickwad. And then arming the people that or war with neighboring countries, that plan would still be useful against them. Either way, if your fucking doctrine's outdated, you can't just continue on how you are.
Armored formations, especially Lieutenant General Rad Majid al-Hamdani, who was the commander of the 2nd Republican Guard Corps and one of Iraq's most capable officers. Saddam accused al-Hamdani of thinking like an American for his interest in military history.
Wow. Yeah, because that's such a bad thing, because the Americans were so bad at war, huh?
He ignored his recommendations.
Thank God he did.
For Saddam's
Great he did, but
fuck. His warped view of how the First Gulf War had ended. Having destroyed the bulk of the Iraqi ground forces in the centre and left flank, 150 miles southeast of Baghdad, the coalition turned their advance east towards the Republican Guard in the famous right hook manoeuvre. Norman Schwarzkopf was wary of toppling the Iraqi regime after accomplishing his primary objective of liberating Kuwait, but Saddam held a different view. He convinced himself that Iraqi forces had stopped and defeated the coalition on the Euphrates River.
Really? I didn't know that he thought that. We just didn't want to topple a regime in helping out Kuwait. And so he's delusional.
Did not march on Baghdad. Although this was a fatal misreading of the history of the war, Saddam's generals wouldn't dare present any opposing view, less risking imprisonment or execution.
I mean, smart, I guess.
Ahmed told his interrogators after the war, it was not allowed to raise your hand above anyone around you. It was dangerous. If a military leader disappeared, we did not know what had happened, but he was probably dealt with by the security services. Saddam also believed that the United States would be unwilling to suffer casualties in a large-scale war. He mocked.
Why would you want to stay in in a position of power like that, my ass is out of there. I ain't sticking with that shit.
The American military's performance in Vietnam, claiming that they had run away after suffering a mere 58,000 deaths. He bragged that his own army had suffered 51,000 casualties in the Battle of Al-Four against Iran, yet kept fighting. From Saddam's point of view, any attack from the United States would just...
I'm sorry. It's one of my best performing videos. We did not lose the fucking Vietnam War. I will stand by that. At least, even if we did lose, not nearly as bad as people fucking seem to think. It is just very... I don't know.
Another long bombing
That's
campaign,
stupid.
and maybe small
It's a stupid thought process.
Iraq. Only loyal Ba'athist militias would receive arms from the regime, especially the Fedayeen. Saddam simply could not believe that the coalition would aim for Baghdad, and forbid his generals from developing plans to carry out an insurgency.
Why would they not aim for Baghdad?
The strategy for defending Iraq would remain the same as it was throughout the 1980s and Desert Storm. After Saddam declared his strategy to be final, he took more steps to coup-proof his regime at the expense of defending his country's borders.
Stupid.
Units of the regular army would be stationed far from Baghdad, with most manning the Green Line, the boundary between Iraq and Iraqi Kurdistan. Not even the Republican Guard divisions would be allowed in Baghdad. Furthermore, division commanders could not make any decisions without the consent of the Republican Guard's Chief of Staff, a Saddam loyalist, and were forbidden from communicating with other units. The isolation of the army led to a massive decrease in capability, as well as one darkly comedic outcome.
That sounds horrendous. Jesus, Saddam, you paranoid dipshit. You really fucking neutered your fucking country. Like, fuck. That's bad.
Into the book Cobra 2, the inside story of the invasion and occupation of Iraq. The strictures against contacting, let alone coordinating with, neighbouring units were so severe that the commander of the 1st Republican Guard Corps developed a new use for his reconnaissance units, scouting the location and strength of nearby Iraqi divisions.
Really?
Following the attacks against the US in 2001,
that's so bad.
Saddam Hussein slowly came to grasp the danger he was in. In December 2002, he convened a series of top-secret meetings with his inner circle and military high command. He began by making a shocking statement. Iraq did not possess any weapons of mass destruction. The military commanders were stunned at the news.
Not that.
They had assumed the Iraqi regime maintained a hidden stockpile of chemical or biological weapons, which could be used against any invader.
WMDs. The good old bread and butter of the CIA, baby.
Saddam had a reason to tell his generals this news. They could not rely upon WMDs to defeat the enemy, and would need to fight to the bitter end with conventional weapons. Rather than galvanizing his military leaders, Saddam's disclosure sent morale plummeting, as his generals knew that they now had little to no chance of stopping the coalition if they invaded.
Yeah.
At a later meeting on the 18th of December, Lieutenant General
But also, if you did use WMDs against the coalition, your fucking country would be glassed if you use WMDs. Like, it's not a good choice either way.
Al-Rawi, the Chief of Staff of
the Republican Guard. That's kind of the whole nuclear deterrent thing, where we have nukes, you have nukes, we don't want to use them type shit.
Announced that the Iraqi strategy for defending the country would be changed. Once again, the Iraqi professional officers were shocked at this development, considering they had not been consulted beforehand. General al-Hamdani was the sole dissenting voice against the plan, having summoned more bravery than his peers.
Good for him.
He warned Qusay Hussein that the plan was full of bad assumptions and lacked any basis in facts. This was
Let me guess, he
avail.
disappears.
Qusay shut down the debate by declaring, "The plan was already approved by Saddam, and it was you who would now make it work."
I can't make
the ring plan.
I can't make a plan that's bad work. I'm not a miracle worker.
Because it presented the best opportunity for him to preserve his regime, even at the expense of defending his nation. He had already assumed that the coalition plan would be the same as Desert Storm, a long bombing campaign followed by a shallow thrust into southern Iraq. For Saddam and his inner circle, the absolute worst case scenario they believed would happen would be the establishment of a Shiite enclave in the south of the country. But
No.
he felt the regime would survive.
This
as long
time, no, you're not going to survive. This time, it's full. We weren't focused on taking you down last time. This time, we are.
as he held on to the Kirkuk oil fields north of Baghdad. Regardless, whatever plans the Iraqi regime had formulated fell apart once the war began. Contrary to his expectations, the coalition invasion began without a long air campaign, and aimed right for the Iraqi capital. Psychological operations badly hurt Iraqi morale, as unit-specific pamphlets urged soldiers to desert. The commander of the 1st Republican Guard Corps later said, "Even the lowest soldier knew we couldn't stop the Americans." Desertion skyrocketed and left many units.
Damn, that's kind of God.
The Al-Nida Republican
How bad is your morale at that point? Holy shit.
Guard Division began the war as one of the best equipped units in the Iraqi military, with 13,000 men. Its commander told American interrogators, "By the time we had orders to pull back to Baghdad, I had less than 2,000. By the time we were in position in Baghdad, I had less than 1,000. We had no engagements with the Americans. Every day, the
That many people deserted that quickly? Holy shit, your morale is horrible.
desertions increased. Iraqi units were not destroyed by American power, they simply dissolved. Thanks in part to poor intelligence, the initial coalition airstrikes mostly hit empty headquarters, barracks, and other military installations. But the precision attacks had a profound impact on Iraqi soldiers and officers. The ever-present threat of coalition bombing essentially paralysed the Iraqi military, as units tried to remain hidden in pre-prepared positions. Paranoid officers refused to use computers or satellite phones for fear of coalition intelligence tracing their calls, which would inevitably lead to precision munitions heading their way.
Damn.
Iraqi units which engaged enemy units
That is some fucking real shit right there. That is some fucking I am scared for my fucking life type shit. Holy God, that's amazing.
advancing from Kuwait were either destroyed in place by overwhelming firepower or forced to disperse back into the civilian population. Despite the unfolding military disaster, Saddam's commanders lied about the results of these battles.
Of course they did. They didn't want to get
From the
disappeared.
Southern Region Command on the 21st of March read, "A counter-attack force of the 11th Infantry Division made contact with the enemy and was able to destroy 6 enemy tanks."
It
In
was the
reality,
truth, though.
The 11th Infantry Division had effectively ceased to exist within the first 24 hours of the start of the campaign.
Damn!
Although most regular army units fled the battlefield, the Saddam Fedayeen fought tenaciously. American units which bypassed large Iraqi cities found themselves under attack from the rear by fanatical Ba'ath Party loyalists, although the Fedayeen did take fearful losses during these engagements. Communications also became a serious problem. Iraqi High Command lost contact with most of its units in the field by the end of March. The US 3rd Infantry Division stood poised to assault the Karbala Gap in the first week of April, while chaos reigned in Baghdad. General Hamdani of the 2nd Republican Guards Corps saw the danger posed by not covering the gap and asked Qusay Hussein for reinforcements.
I guess he denied him.
With the fate of Baghdad in the balance, Qusay denied Hamdani's request.
Called it.
This final mistake sealed the regime's fate.
BMP2.
On the 4th of April, the 3rd Infantry Division broke through the thin defences covering the Karbala Gap.
God. This fucking military, this setup right here, the DCUs, the OGM4s. God damn. This is a vibe. This aesthetic is a vibe. Holy God.
And, along with the Marine Expeditionary Force, successfully isolated the Iraqi capital. Saddam's regime lost the war because of the gulf in military power, but also in large part due to his hubris, tyrannical behaviour, and lack of common sense in military matters. In a tale as old as time, the overbearing and close-minded dictator only succeeded in sealing his own fate.
Yeah, like he
Again, to all our amazing
literally, like he said, "Hey, Thor Olsen, that's cool." Like I was gonna say, yeah, that's tale as old as time.
Your support enables us to keep making these videos. Thank you to all our new patrons who joined recently, and a special thanks to our patron of the week, Thor Olsen. Each week we choose our favourite Patreon comments to shout out. This week, Mark says, Very interesting to see the other point of view. If you'd like to support us,
it is
please
really
join our
interesting.
Patreon at
This is actually very interesting. I love this.
/the operations room and get access to exclusive benefits such as early access to videos completely ad and sponsor free. We would love to have you as part of our community and really appreciate your support.
God, like, these are really interesting. Operations room's cool, but this is also really interesting. I love these guys. I really do. Like what they do in breaking everything down and showing it is just super interesting. I love this kind of shit. Like, I don't know why. It's just something I'm really into. Well, this was Operation Iraqi Freedom from the Iraqi military perspective by the Intel report. There'll be a link down below, so make sure you guys check them out. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that. Until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.